A delivery driver visits more front doors in a week than most people do in a lifetime. 200 stops a day, 200 porches, 200 doormats, 200 little windows into strangers' lives. Almost all of them are exactly what they look like. These 3 stories are about the doors that weren't. Every route has a house the driver knows better than the neighbors do. This is a story about how well I knew 1141 Garfield and how long it took me to admit what I knew. I ran the same residential route for a package carrier for 3 years, and 1141 was my favorite kind of stop. No dogs, no gate codes, no chatty customers. Also, no people, because 1141 Garfield was empty. Not quiet, empty. Grass gone to seed, mail slot taped over, a phone book on the porch that had been dissolving since before I got the route, and plywood in the 2 back windows. Every driver has vacant addresses. You learn them and forget them. Except 1141 ordered things. The first package was small, a phone-sized box, instructions in the app, leave at front door, do not knock. Fine, nobody to knock for anyway. I remember actually laughing at that. Over the next 4 months there were dozens, electronics mostly, judging by the weight and the sender names, always the same instruction, always gone by my next pass. And here's the thing I want you to understand about the job. None of that is your business. You are graded on scans and seconds. A vacant house that accepts packages is, professionally speaking, a great house. So I delivered and scanned and left, and whatever was itching at the back of my brain, I kept it fed with excuses, relative checking the place, owner between tenants, none of my business, next stop. 3 things ended the excuses. The first was the curtains. The front window had filthy old curtains, and one Tuesday I realized, standing on the porch, that I could see the curtain moving, gently, like breath. The window was closed. The house had no power. I knew that, because there was a red disconnection tag on the meter that had been there for years. Air moves in old houses, I told myself, and I drove away, and that night I sat in my kitchen thinking about airflow like a crazy person instead of sleeping. The second thing was the car. A silver hatchback, always parked somewhere on my route, never at 1141, never even on Garfield, but 3 stops back, or across from where I stopped for lunch, or idling at the end of a cul-de-sac I'd just finished, engine running. You don't notice a car like that until you do, and then you can't stop. Same dent in the rear bumper, same pine air freshener. I started writing down times, like my grandfather taught me to do with anything strange, and over 2 weeks my notebook turned into something I didn't want in my handwriting. That car intersected my route every single day, and it was never behind me, it was ahead. Whoever drove it didn't follow me. They knew my route better than I did. They were waiting along it. The third thing was the slip of the finger that probably fixed everything. A February afternoon, sleet coming down, and at 1141 I fat-fingered the scan, marked it delivered, handed to customer, instead of left at door. A nothing error, drivers fix it at the next light. But not 30 seconds after the wrong scan went through, as I was pulling away, a man stepped off the porch of the house across the street, a house that was also empty, I realized, in the way you realize things all at once, and looked at my truck. The way you look at a machine that has just done something it shouldn't. and in my mirror I watched him walk quickly, not towards 1141, but towards the silver hatchback parked around the corner. He was reading the scans in real time. That's when the last 4 months reorganized themselves in my head into a picture. Nobody lived at 1141. The house wasn't receiving packages. It was a dead drop, a shipping address for things bought with other people's credit cards, and the man in the hatchback was the collector, timing his pickups off the delivery notifications, staying ahead of me, checking that his mailbox on Garfield was fed. I wasn't a delivery driver on that block. I was a courier for someone else's crime, 5 days a week, with a company scanner announcing my every move to him like a butler. I'll skip the part where my supervisor told me to make sure the scans were accurate. I could do 20 minutes on that, and get to the part where I found the one detective in our precinct who worked card fraud. He didn't laugh at my notebook. He photographed it. And 6 weeks later, 1141 Garfield made the local news. Reshipping ring, 4 vacant houses across 3 routes, a rented storage unit full of electronics, and a silver hatchback in the impound lot with a Pine air freshener and a scanner app open on a phone mounted to the dash. 3 arrests. The detective told me the man had a folder of printed route maps. Mine had my truck number on it, and my first name, and the time I usually took lunch. They never threatened me, I want to say that plainly. Nobody ever approached me, and the detective said men like that avoid drivers the way ticks avoid the tweezers. But I still think about the 4 months where I felt that itch and fed it excuses. 200 stops a day trains you not to look at anything too long. Somebody out there knew that. Somebody built a business on the fact that the most reliable man in the neighborhood, the one who comes every day, rain or shine, and sees everything, has been carefully taught to see nothing. The route's got a new driver now. I train rookies these days, and I've added one line to the script that isn't in the company manual. If a vacant house starts ordering things, it isn't the house that's shopping. Rural routes teach you that an address is a promise, not a fact. The app says a road exists. The road disagrees. The map says 40 minutes. The washboard gravel says an hour and your rear axle. I ran a rural route in western Nebraska for 2 years, and this happened in my first October at an address I'd never been sent to before and was never sent to again, Box 6, Old Cottonwood Road. The package was a padded envelope, light as a deck of cards, no sender name, just a return address in a town I later learned had been unincorporated since the 70s. And in the delivery notes, typed in the flat voice of every delivery note on Earth, ring the bell and wait, signature required, recipient is home. Old Cottonwood Road was 11 miles of nothing, and Box 6 was a farmhouse at the end of a windbreak, white, 2-story, the kind of place that photographs pretty and lives lonely. It wasn't derelict, that matters. The porch was swept. There were geraniums, red ones, in 2 pots, blooming in October, which I didn't think about until later. A bell hung by the door on a little iron bracket, an actual bell with a rope, and per the note I rang it. The sound went out over the fields and came back thinner. Nothing. No footsteps, no dog, no curtain twitch. I rang again, waited the 90 seconds, and reached for the door tag, the "sorry we missed you" slip, because signature required means no signature, no package, and my scanner buzzed in its holster. I want to describe this exactly because it's the whole story. The screen was on. The signature field, the little grey box where a customer scrawls with their finger, was filling in, not appearing, not glitching, filling in, stroke by stroke, a tall looping E, then dots and hills, unhurried, while the scanner sat in my hand in the open air of an empty porch, and the bell rope moved in no wind at all beside my head. The name finished itself, Eleanor Voss. The device chimed, the little delivery complete chime, a sound I'd heard 400 times a week, and the screen said what it always says, signed for by E. Voss, release package. I have tried to reconstruct a version of that minute where I do anything smart. What I actually did was obey the scanner. That's the truth of it, and I've made peace with what it says about me and about training. My hands put the envelope on the mat, square to the door, while the rest of me stood behind my own eyes, screaming small, useless things. The geraniums were very red, the house was very quiet, and from inside, soft, muffled by the door, but unmistakable, I heard a chair move. One chair, wooden legs on a wooden floor, the sound of someone who has been sitting a long time, getting up. Getting up the way you get up when what you've been waiting for finally comes. I did not wait to hear the door. I was in the truck and a mile gone before I let myself look in the mirror, and the porch, in that last bounce of the washboard road, was empty. No envelope. Here's the part you can check, because I did. In town, Harlan's, the kind of feed store where the coffee pot is communal and so is everyone's business, I asked, real casual, who lived out at the end of Old Cottonwood Road. And the store went the specific kind of quiet that farm towns reserve for exactly one subject. Eleanor Voss, an old man told me finally, had lived out there most of her life. Her boy went overseas in 1968 and didn't come back, and the Army's telegram beat the boy's last letter home. The letter he mailed the week he died got lost somewhere between an APO and Old Cottonwood Road. Eleanor spent 30 years telling the postmaster every single week that it would still come, that a letter isn't lost while somebody's still home to sign for it. She kept geraniums going on that porch until the morning they found her in her chair by the door, and the county took the house in '02, and nobody had lived in it since. I know what the padded envelope weighed, light as a deck of cards, light as a few sheets of paper folded 3 ways in a military envelope. And I know there's no version of the paperwork that makes sense, no sender that checks out, no rational chain of events that ends with that envelope and that address and that name filling in a signature box, stroke by patient stroke, 56 years after somebody licked a stamp on the other side of the world. The scan is still in the company's system. That's the detail I hold on to when I doubt myself. It's not memory, it's data. Delivered October 19th, 2:41 p.m. Signed for by E. Voss. The dispatcher never sent me back. The address dropped out of the system like it had done what it was for. But the next spring, on a different route that clipped the far end of Old Cottonwood, I drove the 11 miles out on my own time, on my day off, because I had to see. The house was there. The porch was swept by wind and nothing else, the windows blank, the bell rusted onto its bracket, a house with nobody home, the way it had really been for 20 years. The geranium pots were still by the door, empty, of course. They'd always been empty, but I'd swear on my route book they were watered. I need you to meet Dorothy the way I met her, as an address, 318 Casper Lane, a grey ranch house with brown shutters, and starting in March, a package every single day. Not big ones, the smallest things you can order. A single sponge, one roll of tape, a plastic whisk. Reader, I have delivered a single individual battery to 318 Casper Lane. Daily orders aren't rare. Some people online shop the way other people smoke, but the instructions made it strange. Knock twice, leave at door. Driver, please do not leave without knocking. Please. You don't see please in delivery notes, and you almost never see an instruction that cares whether the knock happens after the drop. A knock is for telling someone the package is there. If I'm leaving it either way, the knock isn't about the package. I never saw her. Months of daily stops, and the door never opened. But the house wasn't empty like Garfield empty. It was occupied quiet, TV murmur that cut off when my boots hit the porch. Sometimes as I walked away, the blinds would shift. Not the front window, a small window, high and to the side, the kind that belongs to a bathroom. And once, in April, as I knocked my 2 knocks, I heard very faint through the door a woman's voice say, "Thank you." Not to me. The tone was wrong, too quiet, like someone saying it to themselves, like someone marking something. The man I did see. Not often, maybe every second week, leaving as I arrived or arriving as I left, a big, neat man in his 50s with a wave like a windshield wiper. Hello, hello. He introduced himself eventually, Gary, the husband, and Gary explained, chuckling, unprompted, that the wife had her little shopping problem and rolled his eyes the way men do when they want you to co-sign something. I chuckled back. You chuckle back, it's a uniform reflex, keep the route friendly. But driving away, I caught the thing my gut had snagged on. I'd been delivering to that house 5 months, and every order, every please knock twice, every 1 sponge package, and Gary had said, word for word, she never gets the door, don't bother knocking. Don't bother knocking. The one thing the instructions begged me to do. I kept knocking. I want that on the record. Whatever else I got wrong, I never skipped the knocks, because the note said please, and something in me had decided the please was real. And in September, package number 100 and something, a box of birthday candles, I'll remember that detail from inside my coffin, had a customs-like label on it, the kind the shipper prints, and along its edge, in ballpoint, in handwriting so small I nearly missed it under the tape, "Call police, not a joke, tell them 4412, D." I stood on that porch holding a box of birthday candles, and every strange piece of 6 months clicked into one picture at once, and the picture looked back at me. The daily orders, the only thing she was allowed to do, or the only thing that brought a scheduled human to the door. The 2 knocks, proof of life, hers or mine, a clock striking twice a day. The bathroom blinds, the TV that went silent, someone listening to make sure the transaction stayed normal. Gary's windshield wiper wave, don't bother knocking. I did not look at the side window. I gave my normal knock, 2, steady, the same knock as always, and if you think that was easy, I promise you my knuckles remember otherwise. Walked my normal walk to the truck, drove my 1/4 mile, and then I stopped scanning and called 911 and read them the label with my voice doing things I didn't authorize. The dispatcher asked what 4412 meant. I said I didn't know. It turned out to be the passcode for the smart lock Gary had installed on the inside of a bedroom door, the kind of lock that isn't sold for the inside of bedroom doors, because the responding officers needed it that same afternoon.
I'm not going to walk you room by room through what the police report says. Dorothy's story is hers, and the trial covered it, and Gary is where he is, which is a sentence I enjoy typing more than any sentence in this account. What I'll give you is the one detail the prosecutor gave me because she thought I'd earned it, and because I think every driver on every route should carry it around forever. When they asked Dorothy, 18 months of it, the doctor said, since anyone outside that house had spoken to her. Why the packages? Why daily? Why a sponge? One whisk? One battery? She said the orders were the only thing he let her keep because they made him look normal and made her look crazy. And then she said, and the prosecutor read this part off her notes, so this is verbatim, "The knock was how I counted days. 2 knocks meant the world was still out there. I ordered 1 thing a day so the world would keep knocking." I met Dorothy once properly, about a year later. She asked the company to send her driver for a pickup, and the company, for once in its corporate life, understood an instruction perfectly. She's smaller than I'd built her in my head, and funnier than anyone with that story has a right to be. There were geraniums on the new porch. There was a dog with absolutely no manners. She signed the pickup slip, handed me back the scanner, and knocked twice on her own front door, grinning at me the whole time. The world's still out there. Count on it, Dorothy. 2 knocks every time.
If you've made it this far, the next time a delivery note asks you for something small and strange, a knock, a bell, a minute of waiting, remember these stories and honor it. You never know what a knock is counting. Subscribe to the Hollow Dial, because time doesn't heal, it haunts. And if you've got a true delivery story of your own from either side of the door, leave it in the comments. We're listening, and so is something else.